Welcome to our first video on how to set up your company file on QuickBooks. Once you've installed QuickBooks on your system, all you need to do is click on your QuickBooks icon, and we're using QuickBooks 2013. And what we're going to be showing you today is not just how to set up your company file, but how to use the home screen, which is one of the basic pieces of QuickBooks, how to change preferences, and how to change company information once you've entered it. Each of our videos come with a detailed handout that discusses each of the topics that we cover. For more information about our videos, go to roperbookkeeping.com. When you open up your QuickBooks file, you're going to see this screen, which is an Express Start. And we're going to click on Express Start. And you can enter your basic company information. You'll enter your business name, and we're just going to say ABC Business. You're going to enter what industry you are, and if you'll click on the Help Me Choose, you can choose which industry best matches the one that you have. Now, I'm going to use for our class today just a general service-based business. And you can see over to the right how the chart of accounts, the list of ledger accounts that you're going to use to record transactions to, will vary based on the industry that you choose. So I chose general service-based business and OK. The company type is the business structure that you're using for your business, that you've set your business up as. I'm going to use a single member LLC. The business structure you select will determine what equity accounts QuickBooks automatically sets up in your chart of accounts for you. You want to enter your tax ID number for your business, and then whether or not you have employees. And again, you can say yes or no I might in the future. I'm just going to say for now, no, I might in the future. And then you're going to hit the button at the bottom that says Continue. Now you can enter your business contact information for your business. So enter your address, you can enter your email address and your website that is appropriate for your business. Now, this information that's showing here is what's going to show up on your invoices when you invoice your customers. So if you don't enter an email address, your email will not show up on your invoice. We'll show in a future video how you can customize those templates to show this information on your invoices. Once you have this information entered, then hit Create Company File. This will create a unique file name for your business. This information that you've entered in here can always be changed later on. So if your address changes or your telephone number changes, you can always edit this information at a future date. Or if you didn't enter your email or website address, you can always enter that also at a future date. Now QuickBooks is going to give us an option to start customizing the information within our QuickBooks file, and all we're going to do right now is to add our bank accounts. So I'm going to click on Add next to Add Your Bank Accounts, and I'm going to enter the account name that I want to assign to the bank account I have. Now, if I do business, say with Bank of America, I may call it Bank of America, and then I would put in the last 4 digits of my bank account. This will allow me that if I have other bank accounts with Bank of America, I can make sure that I differentiate each one with the last 4 digits of the bank account number. I don't need to enter account number information now. I can always enter that later if I decide to do online banking. And then I'm going to hit Continue. This is just a pop-up to remind me about ordering checks. I'm going to just say I don't want to do that. Now I'm going to just hit Continue. And it's going to just remind me in another week about that. Now I can enter additional bank accounts if I want. I'm just going to leave that one bank account there for now. I can always add another one later. And I'm going to say Start Working on my file. saved this company file now on my computer, and this screen that it pops up now is just asking me, do I want to get started and working on specific things. We're just going to X out of this screen and go to the home screen. This is your basic screen in QuickBooks, this home screen. This allows you to do just about everything that you need to do in QuickBooks. You'll see that there's a section for vendors at the top, a section for customers, a section about employees, and again, because we did not click on that we have employees now, it only gives me limited information, a section about company information, and a section about banking. In future videos, we're going to go through each of these different functions in each of these different sections. What I want to show you now, though, are just some basic keys on just getting started with some of the special things in QuickBooks. One of the first things I like to do is get rid of all this stuff that's on the left side. It's a little bit confusing and distracting to me. So I'm going to click on View at the top of the screen, and I'm going to say, instead of having all that information on the left icon bar, I want to move it to the top icon bar. Now you can see that my screen is just much cleaner. But there is one more thing under that view that I want to do, and that is to open window list. This again gives me something on the left, but this is real beneficial to me because as we do things in QuickBooks, we'll be opening up different windows. Each of those windows will start showing up in this list. Once that's on my list, I can click on that window directly from my Open Windows list. I don't have to back out of something and go to it or reopen something. I can see it right in my Open Windows list. The next thing that I want to talk about are preferences. To look at the preferences that are set up in QuickBooks, all I need to do is go to Edit and Preferences. And you can see that there are a whole lot of different preferences that I can look at. Let's just highlight a few of them that I think are real important. The first one is under Accounting. If I go to Company Preferences, it allows me to have the option of using class tracking. What class tracking does is allows me to track information by any type of data fields that I want to. So if I have multiple locations, I could set up a class code for each location, and I can track transactions in my business by location. The other thing it allows me to do is to set a password for dates. Once you have closed out a year in QuickBooks, you can actually come in here and say, for an example, I want to make sure that I don't do any transactions for anything prior to December 31st, 2012, because I've already closed that year out. And if you notice when I entered the dates, I just put in 12/31/12. When I tab over, it'll actually put the slashes in for the date field. And then I can put a password in. I'm just going to use the word closed, that will allow me to make sure that the only way that information is entered prior to December 31st is if that password is entered. Now, as a new business, when you don't have any information in a prior year, this is not real important. But as you finish up a year, you want to make sure you put that closing date in so that you don't inadvertently enter a transaction for a previous year once you've closed it out for accounting purposes. The next preference that I want to look at is the general preference. And under the general preference, I'm going to go to My Preferences. A couple of different ones that I like here. One is this automatically recall last transactions for this name. The reason I like this is as you enter information in QuickBooks and you code, say, a particular bill to a particular ledger account, if this preference is clicked on, the next time you enter a bill for that vendor, it'll automatically remember how you coded the last one and it'll bring that up. You can always change it or put it to a different expense account if you need to, but it helps you remember how you coded it the last time. The other one I like to use is use today's date as a default. If you happen to use different dates for transactions, today you're entering stuff for maybe last week. If you had to use the last date entered as a default, if you had been entering transactions with an old date, and then you come in and create an invoice for today, if you're not careful, it may have created that invoice with last week's date on it. But if you use today's date as the default, then any new transaction that you create will always have today's date on it. And I think that's just a simpler way and more careful way to make sure that you're entering things with a correct date. The next preference that I want to look at is under items and inventory. If you're using inventory for your business, then this is the preference that you use to turn on inventory and purchase orders. We're not going to cover that today, but we'll cover that in a future video. Under reports and graphs is where you can determine if your business is going to be accrual or cash basis of accounting. The nice thing about QuickBooks is I can at any time create a report one way and with a click of a button change it to the other way. But what this does is set the default. How do I normally want to look at my financials, on cash basis or accrual basis of accounting? If you go to one of our previous videos that we did on Accounting 101, it'll go through in more detail about what cash basis and accrual basis of accounting is. This also lets you look at how you're going to age your report. So as you invoice your customers, how do you want to look at the aging of those receivables? The next preference that I want to look at is sales tax. If you're selling a product, then you need to turn on this function for sales tax. Again, this will be something that we cover in a future video. And then the last thing I'm going to show right at the very bottom down here is Tax 1099. If you are paying money to anybody who provides services to your business who is not your employee, then most likely you're going to have to give those people 1099s at the end of the year. This is where you want to turn on this function for 1099s. You want to make sure that that is set up as yes. There's some more processes you need to go through to set up that 1099 process within QuickBooks, but we'll show that in a future video. What this has done is done some basic setup and basic preferences for how you're going to be looking at your QuickBooks on an ongoing basis. You can always go back and change those preferences at a future date. One other change that you can make at any time, as I mentioned earlier, is company information. If I go up to where it says company at the top of the screen, come down on the drop down to company information, then you can see the same information that I had entered for my address information earlier. Now if I want to edit this information, I can click on my edit button, and you can see right here that I had a typo. I did not enter Raleigh, NC as a part of my company name up here, and so I can correct that. I can also come back in and enter my email or web address. I can make sure that I enter the correct phone number and that I've entered the correct tax ID number for my business, and that I've chosen the right tax form. If you'll recall, when we set this company up, I clicked on a single member LLC. A single member LLC files taxes just like a sole proprietorship, and so that's why that shows that as a tax form. Once I say OK here, it's going to save the information. I want to make sure my legal name and my contact information is the same. It'll save that information for future use on forms that I'm going to have in my business. This concludes our little teaser on some of the videos that are coming up, where we'll go through each of the different sections of QuickBooks. For more information about upcoming videos, please go to www.roperbookkeeping.com.